Hello and welcome along to another edition of Racing Post Sports Bets Club. Now, last time Lee and the gang were looking ahead to the Eurovision Song Contest and sticking with the theme of an almighty racket on the continent, we're here today to look ahead to the 2020 French Open at Roland Garros. And I'm delighted to say that we've got the pièce de résistance of the Racing Post tennis tipsters sat next to me in Joe Champion and Aaron Ashley. Thank you very much, guys, for taking the time out to join us to have a look ahead. The guys will be bringing you their best bets and analysing the men's and women's French Open ahead of that getting underway on Sunday afternoon. Now, before we dive into the markets and your bets, guys, just wanted to know where you rank the French Open in terms of the majors, and from a punting point of view, is it an event you look forward to, Joe?
If I had to give it a ranking, I'd go Wimbledon top, very close to my heart, Wimbledon, the tournament that got me into it all. French Open, though, I do love the French Open. It's perfect time of the day to watch it. The US Open goes on too late, the Australian Open through the night. French Open, you can sort of get started at 10 a.m. and buckle in for the next 12 hours every time it's on. So perfect for watching and betting on, I think.
And Aaron, what about from a punting perspective? Is it an event you feel that you can get plenty of value out of?
I mean, it's been difficult in past years because obviously it's been dominated by Rafa Nadal, and it's only the third year that he's not gone off odds on in this for the outright title. But obviously it's a specialist surface. It's the only Grand Slam played on clay, so it offers something different, a bit of variety, and there's a lot of good clay tournaments building up to it. So there's a lot of form to go on, and yeah, you can find some value. Yeah.
As Aaron just touched upon there, the French Open is the culmination of the clay court season in Europe, and if you're only just sort of following the majors, what kind of bits and pieces have we picked up along the way in the build-up to this, Joe? I'm talking particularly about Iga Swiatek and her form, and Rafael Nadal making his return from injury as well.
Yeah, Iga Swiatek, the world number one in the women's game. She's won 28 matches in a row, Chris. She's in fantastic form, and we'll obviously get to the betting soon, but she's going to go off a very strong favourite for the French Open, the strongest women's favourite we've had for a long time. Can anyone stop her? I don't know. You've mentioned Rafa as well. We don't really know what to expect from Rafa. He's got this nagging foot injury that forced him, he was in agony when he was beaten in Rome recently by Denis Shapovalov. He will rock up at Roland Garros bidding for a 14th title, but it's very hard to know what to expect from him. And then we've got Novak Djokovic back in form, obviously after his problems at the start of the year in Australia, back with a point to prove. And then the new star on the scene we're going to talk about soon, Carlos Alcaraz. He's definitely one to look at in depth this week.
Yeah, certainly Alcaraz has been attracting a lot of headlines. I don't know if you'd learned any more lessons, Aaron, from what we've seen in the build-up in Rome and Madrid from a punting perspective, certainly.
I mean, obviously, yeah, the rising star, the new kid on the block, Carlos Alcaraz. It's so exciting that him, Djokovic and Rafa, they're obviously all drawn in the top half of the draw. We'll come on to that later, which they're dominating the betting, but they're also all sandwiched together in that top half, so only one can make the final. He won in Barcelona, he won in Madrid, he skipped Rome where Djokovic won, so he's coming here fresh. So yeah, it's exciting times.
It certainly is. And so let's delve in to the men's side of things now. Looking at the prices for the French Open, Novak Djokovic, the defending champion, 9-4 favourite. Carlos Alcaraz, as the guys have just touched upon there, has sandwiched himself between Rafael Nadal and Djokovic in the betting at 9-2. Rafa is around about fours, so you can get him at for this one. Stefanos Tsitsipas, who made the final last year, of course, similar price, about fives for him. Casper Ruud is 25s, and then Alexander Zverev is 25s as well. Bigger are the rest. So that's how the betting looks in terms of the outright market, guys. And I mean, the draw threw up a big kind of talking point, didn't it? Because the big three, the top three in the market in Nadal, Djokovic and Alcaraz are all going to be in the same half of the draw. So with that in mind, is it worth opposing the top three, Joe?
I think so. We've mentioned the prices already. The big three are taking up about 95% of the book, but as Aaron mentioned, only one of them will make the final. I'm quite happy to leave them alone. I expect one of them will make the final, but who is hard to say. I'll come on to that a bit when we discuss the quarters, but I'm happy to take a flyer in the bottom half of the draw, and if I'm going to have one bet this week, it'll be this fortnight. It'll be Yannick Sinner to win the French Open at 33-1. A very promising young player he's drawn in that bottom half of the draw away from the big three. So we're really looking at a sort of each way bet here. His biggest opposition in that side of the draw will be Stefanos Tsitsipas. Really has had a good clay season, Tsitsipas, and is an experienced clay courter these days. He obviously reached the final last year, and he is that man that they all have to beat in that bottom half of the draw. But Yannick Sinner, very happy to take a punt on him. He was a quarter-finalist in Monte Carlo and Rome, and he reached the last 16 in Madrid. Just coming up a little bit short, but he likes clay. His best performances in Grand Slams have come at the French Open. He was a quarter-finalist on debut in 2020, reached the last 16 last year, and he also reached the quarterfinals with the Australian Open in January. So he's really sort of knocking on the door in Grand Slams. He does need to go to that next level, but I do think that this is a great chance for him. He's got a nice draw. He starts off against a qualifier, then he'll play Roberto Carballes Baena or Oscar Otter. Should easily get to sort of the fourth round, by which point he's favourite to win this fourth quarter, and then he's going to probably meet Tsitsipas or Casper Ruud. Room for improvement in his game, but he's got so few weaknesses, Sinner, that I do expect a big run from him.
So Sinner is Joe's selection, one of Joe's selections, and as you say, he's got the better half of the draw. I mean, Aaron, looking at the draw and the big three, you've got to fancy Tsitsipas from the bottom half of the draw. I mean, you suffered frustration with him last year. Is he going to do you right this time around?
Definitely. I have little doubt that Tsitsipas at some point is going to win the French Open, and his claims this year, with being housed on the opposite half of the draw to the big three, they're crystal clear. Last year, he made the final. He was 2 sets up against Djokovic, and he bossed much of that final. And I'm not sure how. You know what Djokovic is like. He never gives up, never die attitude. And when it went, and he reeled him in. But Tsitsipas this season, he's had such a good clay court season. He won in Monte Carlo. He made the last 4 in Madrid, quarters in Barcelona. He also was runner-up in Rome to Djokovic last year, so he's coming here in form. And he's got a tricky opener against Mazzetti, but I can't see any more problems, really, before the quarterfinals where Sinner could be lurking, and he would be the danger in the bottom half. But for me, at 5-1, I think there's definitely still value in that. He's been backed a little bit just because, obviously, the draw has had a big impact on that. But at 5-1, I still think there's a little bit of juice. And for me, of the big three, Djokovic is the one with he's the most solid of the three. I mean, Rafa's got his injury problems. You've got to be worried about that. Quotes are 9-2 or 4-1 tell you all you need to know about that, because when would you ever get that price on Rafa?
Yeah.
If they're willing to take that risk, then he has chronic foot problems and got beat by Shapovalov in Rome. He'd won in Rome 10 times, so for him to get beaten there, that's a big blow coming into here. Alcaraz, obviously the new kid on the block, he's won big titles, Masters 1000 events, but he's never gone beyond the quarters in a Grand Slam. It's still early days for him. And Djokovic, obviously, he's coming here on the back of a win. So for me, when he's the most solid of the three, I'll be back in name the finalists, Djokovic and Tsitsipas. That's 11-2. So rather than go each way on just Tsitsipas, win only on Tsitsipas, and then hopefully we get the each way part of the bet covered by hopefully getting the final. That's the aim anyway.
That would be a nice one to land. Just going back to Carlos Alcaraz, because if you don't follow the tour as closely as these gentlemen do here, Joe and Aaron, you might not be familiar with him, Joe. And you did an excellent piece, a column on the Racing Post, which you can still get on the Racing Post Sport website about him, suggesting, is he going to be the next face of tennis? I mean, is this going to be his coming out party at the French Open potentially?
Could well be. We obviously have talked about how good his clay court season has been up to this point. And it's not been a shock, really, to see Alcaraz come out of this pack of young guns to sort of be the new man on the scene, the new guy to really serve it up to Djokovic and Nadal. He has been tipped for glory for a long time. He was signed by IMG, the massive talent agency, when he was 12 years old. His manager's been with him for a long time. He started working with Juan Carlos Ferrero, himself a Grand Slam winner. He started working with him when he was sort of about 15, 16. So this hasn't come out of the blue at all from Alcaraz. It was to be expected. He's been playing well enough in slams for a while. But as Aaron mentioned, best of 5, he still needs to sort of prove himself in the second week. He's reached quarterfinals before, but coming up against potentially Djokovic and Nadal is not going to be an easy task for any player, especially one as inexperienced as he is.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough test for Alcaraz, even with his excellent form coming into this event, certainly in that part of the draw as well. In terms of your outright selections then, gents, I mean, Joe, you've highlighted Yannick Sinner as somebody you quite fancy. Is he your main pick, or have you got anybody else you'd like to look at in the men's?
He'd be my only outright selection. I do think that if you want to bet, you should be going for value in the bottom half of the draw away from the big three. If I had to pick one of the big three, I would take Novak Djokovic. We've mentioned Nadal's foot injuries, that's a big concern, and Alcaraz's inexperience. He beat Djokovic in best of three, but best of five is a different kettle of fish entirely. As we've seen so many times, the Novak Djokovic's will to win just seems to get him over the line, including in last year's final against Tsitsipas.
And Aaron, for you, I mean, are you looking at that bottom half of the draw for your sort of main outright tip as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. It'd be Tsitsipas for me, and a Tsitsipas-Djokovic final. I think Tsitsipas, he won't get many better opportunities in this, to be honest. If he's only 23, he's got time on his side, and I do think he's a Grand Slam winner in waiting. And I think if he's going to do it, it's on clay. This is his surface, and this is the time to catch him. Yeah,
certainly Tsitsipas has been handed a nice draw in that one. Just taking a closer look at the quarters then, quickly, quarter one, Novak Djokovic, the favourite to win that one. Then you've got Rafael Nadal, Felix Auger-Aliassime is around about 20s actually for a young player like that. I mean, is there going to be anybody else other than Nadal or Djokovic who are going to emerge from this quarter? I mean, Joe, you've already mentioned, Nadal, you've got your major concerns on him, and Novak at 4-5, would you be having a bit of that to win this quarter?
Yeah, definitely. I think Novak Djokovic, that's one of the best bets in this tournament, Novak Djokovic to win this quarter. I've said that I'm not going to take Djokovic in the outright market, but if you take him in this quarter, you take out the potential tie against Alcaraz in the semi-finals, and a semi-final and then a final against Tsitsipas or Casper Ruud or Sinner. I'm quite happy. Djokovic has got a great run, a great draw to that point. He starts off against Nishioka, probably easily beats him. Alex Molcan could push him a bit in the second round maybe, but realistically, I think he probably has a pretty serene route to the quarterfinals, where he's going to be odds on to beat Nadal, even if Nadal's playing something close to his best. I still think Djokovic would be favourite for that match. So Djokovic 4-5 in that quarter is a really good price, I think.
Yeah, he's in quarter one. The top name in quarter two is Carlos Alcaraz, as we just talked about, 4-7 around about him. Alexander Zverev 7-2, and we also find Cameron Norrie in here. Aaron 16-1. He's had a really good run at Lyon. At the time of recording, he's into the semi-finals. Is he he's definitely flying the flag as a British hope, but is he somebody that could maybe match up with Alcaraz in the quarterfinal in this quarter? If
Norrie was in the bottom half, I could have suggested him for either quarter 3 or 4. He's just unlucky to have landed in that top half alongside the three that we've obviously mentioned and are dominating the talk of the build-up of the championships. For me, I think that winning in Lyon might not help him actually long term, because he's going to come in here if he does get to the final and he wins there, and he's had a busy week going into the French. I'd worry if he had a 5-set with Alcaraz. You'd fancy Alcaraz to come through it at some point. So I can't suggest backing it really in that quarter, to be honest. But like I said, he's unlucky to have landed there because he is playing well.
Yeah, he is. Cameron Norrie doing well at the minute. Quick look at looking into the bottom half of the draw now. Quarter 3, Tsitsipas, Aaron's selection, odds on 10-11 to win that side, that quarter of the draw. Casper Ruud at 3s, and just looking, Denis Shapovalov at around 16s, and Hubert Hurkacz is similar price at 16s as well. Joe, Aaron's already picked out Tsitsipas as his potential winner. Any thoughts on Casper Ruud maybe challenging him in that quarter?
Yeah, I think Casper Ruud's definitely got a chance in that quarter. Tsitsipas is a player I love, and I do think he has a great chance to at least get to the final of this French Open, but he's short enough at the prices. I wouldn't be backing him at odds on in the quarter. I'm quite happy to have a little play on Casper Ruud actually at the prices. Very, very good clay court player, improving all the time, wins big titles. He's definitely has the potential to be a Grand Slam winner, I think, Casper Ruud. He's still fairly immature in his development when it comes to playing in Grand Slams. This could be a week when he really breaks out. He's no shame in losing against Djokovic in Rome the other day, and he beat Tsitsipas in their only previous clay court meeting. So if it does come down to the two of them in the quarter-final, he should be confident enough.
Yeah, that looks an interesting quarter, but not quite as interesting as quarter four. This one, for me anyway, as a casual tennis fan, looks the most open. We've got Jannik Sinner-Joe's selection in there, Andrei Rublev and Daniel Medvedev. You know, a couple of familiar names in Rublev and Medvedev in their particular, Aaron. Any chance of those two perhaps challenging Sinner in that quarter?
I do fancy Sinner to come through this quarter. I think he's actually a good bet. Medvedev struggles on clay. It's not his best surface. We know that. If it was hard court, it'd be odds on, wouldn't he, for this quarter? But
we haven't seen much of him either.
And we haven't seen much of him. Yeah, he's obviously coming in here with not an ideal preparation. I make this a match between Rublev and Sinner, to be honest. I could see them two fighting it out, and Sinner as the more natural on clay. He's won both their previous meetings on the surface, and I think he'll do so again. So I think, 7-2 is he to win that quarter. I think that's a good bet, yeah.
Yeah, 7-2 for Rublev and 3-1 as well. Sinner, and 7-1 for Medvedev, as you say. We've not seen much of him recently. The hard court specialist, if you will. Okay, so that's the men's side of the French Open. Now we're going to move on to the women, and we've usually got a heavy favourite in the men's side in Rafael Nadal, but this time it's the turn of the women with Iga Swiatek dominating the betting for this one. Understandably so, given the form she's been in so far on clay. Odds on at 10 to 11 to win the French Open for the second time, of course, a former champion. Looking at the rest of the betting as well, Simona Halep, another former champion, at 9 to 1. Onus Jabeur has had a good year on clay as well, 14 to 1. Maria Sakkari is 16 to 1, and then Arina Sabalenka is you get her at 22 to 1 as well. Before you guys give your sort of outright selections, Joe, Iga Swiatek, is she going to have the kind of run, perhaps not to the great extent of Nadal, who's won 13 French Open titles, but is she about to, kickstart a run of French Open wins?
Well, she just does nothing wrong, really, Chris. I do absolutely love her game. It's perfectly suited for clay as well, and she thinks about the game so well. You can tell that she's been training mentally as well as physically for these matches, and it's shown on court. 28 wins in a row. If she wins the French Open, she'll equal Venus Williams for 35 wins in a row, which is the most this century. She's such a good player. I can fully get on board with the prices, but I do think there's value elsewhere.
Yeah, she is obviously odds on, as we've touched upon, Aaron. She's 6 to 1 to win the title without dropping a set. But this is, the women's game has been, certainly in the Grand Slams, it's been situations where we've had 14 different winners of the last 20 Grand Slam titles. She's far too short, surely, to have a bat.
Definitely. I mean, look, her claims are crystal clear. There's no denying that. 28 straight wins. She's only dropped sets in 5 of those. That includes 5 titles. She's just confident, and she's a lot more mature than her years suggest. She's 20 years of age, but she's far more mature than that. You can tell that she's really focusing on winning. She just wants to win, do you know what I mean? And she's doing everything she can to do that. And there's obviously no Ashley Barty around anymore, which does help her cause. But she went into it last year. She sauntered through the early round. She got to the quarterfinal, and you thought, this is her tournament for the taking. You just thought she was going to go and win it. And she lost in straight sets to Sakkari in the quarterfinals. And she's odds on in a 128 runner event, do you know what I mean? And it's not like Serena Williams' dominance on Wimbledon, where you didn't mind taking odds on quotes about her because you just fancied her bulldozing her way through the field. But there are a lot of unknowns, and she's dropped in a tough quarter. Simona Halep's in there, former champion Jelena Ostapenko's also in there, Jessica Pegula's playing really well. So it's not going to be easy for her. And at 10 to 11, I think you can swerve it. Yeah,
I certainly would agree with that as well. As you say, it's fairly wide open despite the form of Swiatek coming into this event. I mean, from a betting point of view then, Joe, what's the best way to profit when there's an overwhelming favourite such as Swiatek?
Yeah, so similar thoughts really as was the case in the men's draw, that if you're going to, if you've got these 3 titans in the top half, then take someone each way in the bottom half. Swiatek's obviously, not quite as fearful as the top 3 in the men's, but it's still an overwhelming favourite. So I'm happy to oppose her with someone each way in the bottom half. And for me, Bianca Andreescu is the best bet to win the French Open at sort of odds of about 33 to 1. Huge price about a former Grand Slam champion. She won the US Open in 2019. And a bit like Swiatek, she's experienced similar spells of dominance. She went 6 months without losing a completed match in 2019 on the way to winning the US Open. So she knows how to get on a roll. And I do think that obviously in the years since, she's really struggled with injuries, we know that. But once she does get on a roll and she seems to be getting back to fitness, I do think she's a huge danger on clay. It's a surface she hasn't played on that much, but she does enjoy it. She deliberately decided to not come back in Australia at the start of the year, made sure that everything was right to get back for the summer, and didn't decide to play sort of Indian Wells, Miami. Immediately said, all right, I'm coming back for the clay. I'm coming back to have a crack at Roland Garros. She's eased herself back in. I mean, she's been off court for a sort of year almost and eased herself back in slowly, but sort of steadily getting back to her best. She beat Danielle Collins and Alison Risk in Madrid, and then rocked up in Rome, beat Emma Raducanu, Nuria Peretzes-Diaz and Petra Martic, and then she did push Iga Swiatek a long way. She took her to a tie break in the first set, and then Swiatek got on top of her and won the second set easily. But very promising performance in that first set, and she should sort of come on for these matches as well. Swiatek will be kind of hard fit after playing so many matches this year, but Bianca Andreescu just working her way back to fitness, and such a dangerous player, real big game player she is, and we'll touch on this a bit later, drawn in a very difficult quarter, but I think perhaps that's what she needs. She needs to play against these really, really good players to get the competitive juices flowing again.
So big prize selection from Joe there, Aaron. I mean, this is an event that the French Open, particularly on the women's side of things, where we've had big prize winners before. You look at last year's champion, Barbara Krejcikova, who was 125 to 1, I think, and Swiatek was 50 to 1 when she won it in 2020. So there is value to be found, and I mean, have you found what you think is a value pick as well?
I hope so. I'm also tackling that third quarter a bit like Joe. He's gone for Andreescu. I'm going for Maria Sakkari. She was obviously a semi-finalist last year. We touched on it earlier. She beat Swiatek in the quarterfinals, which is rock solid form. She lost in 3 to the defending champion, Krejcikova. But there are a lot of seeds in that bottom half that are struggling for form. The defending champion has not played since February, so she's coming here. She's going to probably be a little bit ring rusty, so you'd be happy to take her on. Gabi Muguruza obviously loves clay, but she's not playing very well at the moment, so you're happy to take her on too. And I just think Sakkari, I think she's peaking. I think her performances are steadily progressing as she's coming here. She beat Corey Goff in Rome last week before losing in 3 sets to Ons Jabeur in the quarterfinals. That was a match that could have went either way. She's a bigger price than Ons Jabeur, and I just think that, she's value. She's going deep in slams more regularly, and I think she could again.
So there you go, 2 selections from the gents there in Sakkari and Andreescu. Very well worth keeping an eye on those two. I'd agree with the gents on that one. Just looking a little bit more in depth at the draw then in the quarters, starting with quarter 1, Iga Swiatek in that one, the favourite for the event, of course, and favourite for this 4-9. Simona Halep, former champion, 4-1 as well. Jessica Pegula at 14s. We've also got Karolina Pliskova in there as well, 22s as a sort of outsider maybe, but not a natural on clay. But Simona Halep got to be the danger in this quarter then, Joe, to Swiatek.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll probably know quite early how Simona Halep's feeling. She's got a tricky little opener against Anna Konja, and if she comes through that easily, then I do think that we could well see Simona Halep really sort of worry Swiatek should they meet in the fourth round. But realistically, it's Swiatek's to lose, and it's a difficult draw for Swiatek, but she's so good that I find it very hard to see her not coming out of this quarter at least.
And in quarter 2, Aaron, we find Arina Sabalenka, Paolo Badosa, who's not been playing particularly well of late. 13-5 Sabalenka, 7-2 for Badosa, and Alina Rybakina. Looking at the names at the top of the betting of this one, is this sort of where you might see an unlikely challenger emerge from this quarter for the French Open?
This is definitely the one where if you're going to get a big price winner to win the quarter, this is exactly it. Sabalenka's just a difficult player to trust on her day. She's very good, but she makes too many unforced errors for me. And I think Wimbledon's probably a better chance for her if she's going to win a slam. So I'd be taking her on. Paola Badosa, you'd argue, probably should be favourite for the quarter. But as you say, she's not playing well. That's probably why she's not. But yeah, someone like Daria Kasatkina, she's had a good clay court season. She's playing very well. 16-1, that looks a big price to me.
I'd agree with that, and I'd also take her in the outright each way as well, just in case Swiatek doesn't make it to the quarters, to the semis.
Yeah, two yeah, an interesting quarter, that one, quarter two, and as you say, some value to be found there. Quarter three is absolutely jam-packed, looking at the betting for this one and the names in it. Onus Jabeur is the favourite at 7-2 to win the quarter. Maria Sakkari 11-2. Amanda Anisimova at 13-2. And Joe selecting Bianca Andreescu in there as well, 17-2. And of course, Emma Raducanu. I mean, before you guys give your thoughts on who might win the quarter, Joe, Raducanu has obviously meteoric rise at the US Open. Things have tapered off since then. She's had a few injury issues, but she thinks she can go well on clay. I mean, is there a hope that she might win a couple of games here at the French Open at least?
I definitely think so. She's got to qualify to start, so that should be a nice start for her. But you do have to worry about her fitness. She's got back problems. Yeah, the thing is, I think it's all come very quick for her. She had this whirlwind run to the US Open, and since then, it's all very difficult for someone of her age, and particularly her inexperience, to process. We've talked about young players in the past, but someone like Alcaraz has had a bit more behind him before he broke through in the big time. And yeah, it's just all come quickly. She's had issues with coaches. The fitness issues are concerning. I could see her winning one or two matches, but it's such a difficult quarter. I mean, it's absolutely packed with star players that I find it very difficult to see her going to the second week.
Yeah, it will be a big ask for Emma Raducanu to make it through. In terms of who's going to come out of this quarter, Aaron, who are you fancying from this one?
I've got to stick with my outright selection, Sakkari. I think she's got a really good chance. I would say that the biggest danger for her, I believe, is Amanda Anisimova. I think she's a very progressive player. She's improved at a rate of knots. She's got a tough opener against Osaka herself, but I fancy her to come through that. So she's probably the danger for me. But yeah, Sakkari is the value selection, I think, 11-2.
And finally, quarter four there is where we find our defending champion, Barbosa Krejcikova at 9-2. She's not the favourite for it, though. Garbine Muguruza, former champion as well, 7-2 favourite for this one. Coco Gauff at 11-2, and Anita Kontaveit is at 15-2 in this quarter. And I know, gents, you've both got a fancy from this quarter. Joe, who are you thinking will emerge from this one? It's not the defending champion, is it, certainly?
Yeah, I'm very happy to take on the top two in this quarter market. Muguruza has done next to nothing on clay this year, and Krejcikova, as Aaron mentioned earlier, we haven't seen her for a long time, so I don't know how you could confidently back either. And the player I'm quite happy to take on to back rather at a sort of flyer price at double figure odds is Jill Teichmann, who has been playing very, very solid tennis recently. Now, I don't think she's a French Open winner in rating. I expect she'll get found out by someone in the semi-finals or the final should she get there. But she's playing very well. She was a semi-finalist in Madrid, quarter-finalist in Rome, and a fairly straightforward route to the sort of third, fourth round stage, where there's no guarantees that she'll face Victoria Azarenka in the third round and no guarantees that she'll meet Krejcikova after that. So I do think that Jill Teichmann has a a good route.
You join in Teichmann, the Teichmann bandwagon, Aaron, or are you going against Joe?
It's like Joe's been copying my notes here. I think I'm going to take two against the field here, because this is the one that, again, that you can exploit this quarter, I think, because Krejcikova, like you say, it'd be some almighty performance if she can make the semi-finals on the back of the preparation she's had. Like I said, Qatar was the last time she played. That was in February. It would be some performance if she manages that. Muguruza's not playing well, and Azarenka's just very wildly inconsistent, I'd say, is the best way to put it for her. So yeah, Jill Teichmann, she's improving rapidly. She's had a really good clay court season. Your only concern would be, obviously, she withdrew, didn't she, last week in Rome when a set and a break down. But maybe that's just she felt a slight little knock and just wanted to look after herself, protect herself for this. So she can go well. But the other one is Corey Gauff. The 18-year-old, a bit like Raducanu, she's not won a Grand Slam, but she's made quarterfinals of Grand Slam. She made a quarterfinal here. She's took a bit of time to meet, because obviously at Wimbledon when she was 16, she came through, broke through, beat Venus Williams. That's what everyone remember for her early days. She's took a bit of time to match that talent, but she's definitely a Grand Slam winner in waiting. At some point, you imagine that she is going to win one. Obviously, she was a quarterfinalist here. She's versatile regarding the surface, and I just think, yeah, she's a fair price as well. She's going off at about 11-2 to win the quarter. So I'd take split stakes, her and Teichmann, 11-2, 11-1. That'd be my way to go.
So there you go, the guys coming up with a couple of nice prices there in quarter four of what looks like a competitive bottom half for the women's draw of the French Open. Now, if you follow the tennis on the Racing Post Sport website, you will have seen that the gents next to me were banging in the daily ACCA winners during the Australian Open, and that is going to be resurrected for the French Open. You can have a look at the daily ACCAs every day on there, and of course with the draw being made, the guys have been kind enough to put together a first round ACCA. And Joe, I'll let you have first crack at this one in terms of who you've come up with, your 4 selections.
Yeah, so I've got a 4-fold. The first bet is Christian Garin to beat Tommy Paul. Garin, a superior clay court player to Tommy Paul, who's lost 5 of his 7 matches on the surface. The next one is Alex Molcan to beat Federico Coria. Molcan currently in the semi-finals in Lyon. He hammered Coria 6-3, 6-2 in the quarters, and he'll be absolutely, he'll be desperate to try and tee up a second round tie against Novak Djokovic. The next one in the women's draw, Petra Martic to beat Katerina Siniakova. Martic is a former Roland Garros quarter-finalist. She's won 7 of her last 9 matches. Is just a very, very solid clay court performer. And the last one is Maria Osorio Serrano to beat Harmony Tan, French player Tan. She's not a great player, not very highly ranked, has won 2 of her last 10 matches. Osorio Serrano, a much more solid proposition on clay.
So those are Joe's 4 selections for his 4-fold in the first round. Aaron, have you got any of those in yours, or have you got come up with something different?
I've gone something different.
Yep.
I've also gone a 4-1 4-fold though. I've got David Goffin to beat Jiří Lešeka. Goffin, he had a slow start to the season, but he's back in top form. He won a title in Marrakech, and he obviously beat the Czech in Monte Carlo last month. I think he can do so again. Nicolas Basilashvili to beat Maxime Cressy.
There's going to be one.
Maxime Cressy is a serve and volley specialist. That's hard to do on clay courts. The Georgian's got 3 clay titles to his name. I think he can win that one. And as I mentioned earlier, Amanda Anisimova to beat Naomi Osaka. She beat her in Melbourne. That is Naomi Osaka's surface, a hard court. I can't see her reversing the form on clay. Amanda Anisimova, she made the semis in Charleston, the quarters in Rome. She's playing well. She can win that one. And then Arthur Rinderknech to beat Bublik. Bublik's talented, but he's not as best on clay. He's lost his last 5 matches on the surface, and home advantage for Arthur. Yeah, he can get the job done too.
So there you go. Certainly opposing Osaka seems like a wise move after the...
Should we recap those ones, Chris? Because we've some difficult to pronounce ones in there.
Well, if you want to have another go at it, Aaron...
I should have made it easy, shouldn't I? Should have went Dan Evans, Cameron Norrie.
We'll go with the 8-fold as well, shall we?
Yeah, teamwork between the 2 guys, have put them together for the 8-fold. What does it pay out at?
About 25-1.
25-1. Wow, fascinating and wonderful way to start off the French Open if that were to land as well. Those first round tips from the guys there. So we're going to wrap things up with your best bets, gents. If you haven't been writing some of these tips down whilst we've been going through them, now's the time to go grab a pen and paper and an opportunity to make a note of the selections from Aaron and Joe. And Joe, sort of your favourite bets, your outright and your favourite quarter bets.
So I'll go with my best outright bet would be Bianca Andreescu to win the Women's French Open, and my best quarter bet would be Novak Djokovic in that top quarter of the men's draw.
And for you, Aaron, just a quick recap of your favourite ones for
I like Stefanos Tsitsipas to win the men's French Open. I also like a double on Novak Djokovic and Stefanos Tsitsipas, both to win their quarters, pays just over 3-1. I like that. Yannick Sinner to win quarter 4. And in the women's, Corey Goff and Teichmann split stakes on those to win quarter 4.
So there you go. Fascinating French Open to come. And thank you very much to the gents for being with us today. Aaron and Joe, fantastic work as usual, picking out and going over the draw ahead of the French Open, which starts on Sunday. Now, the guys have come up with lots of suggestions today. Please always remember to gamble responsibly. Don't gamble more than you can afford to lose. And we'll be back for another edition of Bets Club very shortly. But from myself and from the guys, it is goodbye.